It's Quest,
the adventure game podcast.
Oh, Jess. Jess, we're recording at an irregular time today, which means that I can't talk about what I had for dinner.
Oh man, that really throws off our whole vibe here. Usually we start off with dinner talk and all that. It's mid-afternoon. It's been hours since I've eaten. It will be hours before I eat again. I don't even know how we banter our way through the beginning of this thing.
Instead of having lunch, I was in therapy.
Oh man, well that means that we could talk about that.
We could have after therapy, like one of those TV, like after Walking Dead, after Star Trek, whatever those shows are, where we
You're
kind
like,
of decamp, talk
yeah.
about it. It's like, yeah, I got into it talking about my parents again. But let's not waste time here.
Let's not beat around the bush.
Let's not beat around, because people saw the title. It's always funny when you're listening to a podcast and they're like, all right, well, let's not get into it yet. But you see the title of the podcast, you know, like if there's like a guest or something like that. So you don't need to like preamble too much.
That's why
like
there's a twist. There is no guest. Our title was a lie this week. We're switching it up on you. No, we do have a very special guest that's joining us today. Folks, we have legendary adventure game designer Josh Mandel here with us. Josh, how are you?
I am actually doing great. I'll make this brief. A good number of years ago, I came down with a tremor in my right hand, and my left hand minor. But for a good year or so, I could barely even type or use a mouse. And I had to give up my hobbies and everything. But a little over a month ago, I had a procedure, and my right hand is now rock steady. I'm back typing. I'm back cooking. I'm back teaching magic, twisting balloons. I am doing better than I've done in a long time. So
that's awesome.
That's
love
fantastic
to hear
news.
that. I didn't know that you did magic.
I love magic. I've been doing magic since I was like 7 or 8. My father introduced me to it.
When you did stand up, was that part? Did you do some magic in the stand up?
Very, very little. It just wasn't part of our thing. We did sketches, and once in a while I would throw in a magic trick, but it always frightened me to do magic in front of a large audience, because I was just so terrified that something was going to go wrong and I wouldn't know how to talk my way out of it.
My favorite magicians I've seen are remarkably good bullshitters, though. So I just saw Penn and Teller, and I mean, Penn is one of the greatest bullshitter. Like, he had a whole show about it. They both did.
Well, I can't imagine anyone who's tuning in isn't familiar with Josh's work. But Ben, could you give our guest a proper introduction here?
Josh is the voice. So a game that I've played with myself is identifying your voice in Sierra games. Obviously, you're King Graham in 5 and 6, and then in the remakes of 1 through 3. But then I was very tickled to hear your voice, like recognize it in the second Laura Bow, the Dagger of Amon Ra. I was like, wait a minute.
Thinking like Crodfaller T. Rhubarb? Was that?
I was Crodfaller T. Rhubarb. I was Steve Dorian. I was one of the cab drivers.
Were you T-Rex? Were you the T-Rex?
I was the T-Rex.
Right. All right. Yeah. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's John.
The T-Rex was based heavily on the Oakhurst bear.
But in addition to voice talent at Sierra, he also wrote and designed, did some writing on the remake of King's Quest One. Designed Freddy Farkas Frontier Pharmacist, which I told my older brother just yesterday. I'm getting to interview the guy that designed Freddy Farkas, and he said he's very jealous, so that made me feel good. Um, Also, Space Quest 6. You worked on Shannara, is that right?
Yeah, Legend. Yeah,
At Legend. And then also Callahan's Cross Time Saloon.
right.
Which if you're able to track that down, I say to you, the listener, worth tracking down. I don't Is Spider Robinson hard to get? I mean, I don't know. Like, is he hard to get his rights or something? Like, it's odd to me that that's
Yeah.
not on somewhere.
It was easy to get his rights. In fact, the first time I spoke to him, when I was at Legend, once we had already secured the rights and I knew I was going to do the game, um, I said to him, "How much do you want me to collaborate with you? Because I want you to be pleased. I want you to feel like we've done your property justice." And he said, "As long as the check clears, I'm fine."
Perfect.
Is there anything? Is there anything here I'm missing?
Well, there was a lot at Sierra. I mean, when I first got there, I thought to myself, I was hired as a junior producer. I didn't want to be a producer. I wanted to be a designer. I mean, doesn't
Yeah.
everyone want to be a designer? So I made myself as indispensable as possible. So I worked on the remake of, wrote for the remake of Larry 1, Larry 5, Larry 6, Jones in the Fast Lane, lots where the remake of PQ1, wherever a designer would let me, I would horn my way in and write at least a little, hopefully a lot. So there were a lot.
There's something. Okay, so this actually, we're gonna get to ask you something that Jess and I have been wondering about the Police Quest 1 remake, because Jess and I have been talking about this.
Uh-oh.
There are like, it's very clear that the descriptions are not Jim written descriptions.
Yes. They have things like adjectives that
well,
sort of clue you in. Yeah.
but in addition, but there's kind of an acid sense of humor, and I know that also Scott worked on it too, I believe.
I think Laura Shannon
one or
also,
two
right? Yeah.
really kind of nasty, like dark humor, nasty descriptions in there. And so that's something that Jess and I have talked about, is it's like, do you think that Scott wrote this? But now I'm like, oh, did you write? Like, there's some stuff in there where I read it and I'm just like, oh, they're having fun. They're kind of making fun of this a little bit.
That's fantastic. Before we jump into all of that, though, Josh is joining us today for a special reason, not only to talk about all of these fantastic games he's been part of, but Josh, you're here on behalf of a special cause as well. Would you mind telling the listeners a little bit about what you got going on?
Certainly. There was a woman who was one of the brightest lights in the adventure game community, and her name was Roberta Vaughn. Probably just about everyone listening to this podcast has heard of her. She has been involved in so many projects, conventions, get-togethers. She worked. I believe she worked on a Colossal Cave with Ken and Roberta recently. Anyway, she had some health issues, which resulted in her being in a coma, and we started a GoFundMe for her medical expenses. And the eventual outcome, unfortunately, is that her family eventually made the decision, working with neurosurgeons, to take her off of life support. Her organs were donated in accordance with her desires. But during that time, she racked up some amazing medical expenses, some of which, or a lot of which, may be covered by insurance, but some of which may not. And there are a lot of other associated costs as well. Unfortunately, her funeral, her memorial, and a special project that she was working on at the time that she got sick, that's related to full motion video games. And so we started this GoFundMe initially for her medical expenses. Now we're sort of opening it up to more of the family's expenses. And she was just a delight to know and to work with. She was generous to a fault. She was incredibly hardworking and talented, and she had a real knack for bringing people together and introducing people to each other, suggesting collaborations between people that turned out wonderfully. She was everywhere in the industry and invaluable to those of us who had the privilege of knowing her and working with her. And so I'm stumping for her GoFundMe, which will probably end towards the end of this month. We've had it going for about a month and a half already. And Roberta, I loved you and I miss you, and so do hundreds and hundreds of people in this industry who will never forget your contributions and everything that you've done for this entire community.
Absolutely, she touched so many lives. Just an outpouring of stories about everything she gave back to the adventure game community. Following her passing, and the link to the GoFundMe will be in the show notes. Be sure, if you feel passionate about this genre, this is a cause that definitely deserves some of your attention. So be sure to go check that out. And we appreciate, Josh, you coming on today and taking a chance to talk about that.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Anything I can do to help out Roberta's family in this dark period will be appreciated. Any donations, no matter how small, everything helps.
Thank you.
Yeah. And yeah, that's once again, you could double check the show notes. And if you listen to this on the day that this comes out, Jess, I believe you're having a stream with this for this too. Is that correct?
Yes,
The next day.
Yeah, we're gonna be. If you listen to this day of,
If you're a day of person,
yeah, that'll make Wednesday, August 20th. We're going to be having a special stream to get some more eyes on Roberta's GoFundMe. Josh is going to be joining me on Twitch. We're going to be talking a little bit about Sierra stuff. We'll be doing some Q&A, giving fans a chance to pick Josh's brain over all kinds of stuff. So possible other special guests. I don't know what all might happen there, but be sure to tune in. We'd love to have you there as well. So yeah, just get out there and rally for Roberta.
Great.
Yeah.
So in accordance with the rest of the show, it's now time for me to ask. Jess, should I start with you?
I can go first.
Yes. What have you been playing?
It's a great question. And what have I been playing? You know, listeners know lately I've been obsessed with my new little handheld retro console, my Ambernick 35XXH handheld that plays all kinds of retro games. I've even gotten Scum VM running on it, so I can finally play Freddy Farkas handheld on the go. That's pretty just like you intended it, Josh.
Waiting room, and you're like, I need.
Yeah, well, I just go sit at my local CVS because it just feels like the right place for it. No, it is wild getting to put those games on. But what I've really been getting into lately is a game, I guess, also that Sierra published down the road at some point. I've been playing on my little handheld the PlayStation 1 version of You Don't Know Jack, which I found runs kind of wonderfully, and be able to put together, like, you're just trying to kill a few minutes of time, like a little 7-question You Don't Know Jack round, and be able to do it all handheld with just, using the buttons to input your answer is a kind of delightful way to get a trivia fix. I mean, I'm always looking for some good opportunities for trivia, and I'm a sucker for You Don't Know Jack. Plus, I think deep down I remember a lot of the answers when I obsessively played it decades ago, so I feel super smart. That's the main thing I want from trivia, is that feeling of, haha, I'm super smart. And knowing some of the questions already really helps with that. It's like watching a rerun of Jeopardy. You can really nail it.
Josh, did you ever play You Don't Know Jack around release?
I love those games. I was so sad when they stopped making them, and towards the end, it seemed like they sort of drifted farther and farther from their setup. And I kind of like the originals the best, but I adored those games. Jellyvision did a fantastic job.
Have you played any of their, like, the newest things they've been doing on the? They're pretty fun. I'll note. I also am a hometown booster. I live in Chicago, so I'm going to always support the home team. But they're pretty good for, like, a family. My family always plays them together. But we were a You Don't Know Jack family in what, 96? Is that when that came out?
Do you remember briefly, like, during the era of dial-up, when they were doing, like, the weekly web episodes of You Don't Know Jack? I was obsessed with that for a little while, listening to it, stream a highly compressed version of the audio so it could move over like a 28.8 line and all that.
I think it was called You Don't Know Jack, the online show. And they had like 7 new questions every week. And
yes,
we had the stickers on our keyboard because the box came with stickers for Q, B, and P, which were 1, 2, and 3, I believe. And we had the stickers. They lived on our Gateway 2000 keyboard.
That's fantastic. But I love it. And it's perfect, like I said, for a little handheld game. Just a little delight, to serve as a momentary distraction. But no, that's what I've been playing, is a little bit of You Don't Know Jack on my handheld. Josh, what have you been playing?
I've been playing something completely out of character for me. I have never played a collectible card game before in any form. Not physical, not computer-based, but I have recently gotten hooked on something called Animation Throwdown: The Quest for Cards, which is from 20th Century Games and a company called Congregate. And Animation Throwdown is a collectible card game for mobile devices, although you can also play it on PC, that is based on 5 of Fox's animated series. Family Guy, American Dad, King of the Hill, Bob's Burgers, and Archer. So all of the cards are characters and events from those cartoons, and I kind of can't get enough of it. This is a whole new experience for me. Maybe I'm going to have to try Magic the Gathering, but I am so taken with this. I happen to be a huge King of the Hill and Bob's Burgers fan, so this really appeals to me.
Have you watched any of the new season of King of the Hill?
Yes, I've seen the first 2 episodes. I'm trying to stretch it out so that it lasts.
I really wish it was once a week.
I binged it. I couldn't resist. I binged straight through. And I'm actually just watching Bob's Burgers for the first time over the last month or so too. I was totally out of the loop on Bob's Burgers. Really digging that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Binged the new King of the Hill. It was so delightful.
I'm halfway through. I've been trying, but also I was sick for a bit, so it made it easy to just kind of burn through a whole bunch of them. But they're good. They're good.
They're very good. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, the collectible card game, that's a genre I haven't touched very much either. It's, but I think you have a little more experience there, don't you?
I'm into like games like Slay the Spire, which is like a PC or mobile like card game type thing like that. And Balatro. I was playing. Balatro lives on my phone now, and when I was riding the train back here to record this, that's what I was playing. That's pretty much just what I do when I am on public transit now, is play Balatro. It was a game designed for public transit.
What a world we live in today.
So I have been playing chess. This might even be the second time, but I was messing around on my Steam Deck last weekend, and I was just kind of like, I wonder how Baldur's Gate 3 would run on the Steam Deck. I know that like it's a pretty heavy lift for such a kind of a lightweight in terms of like device like that. I'm like, I wonder what it would be like. It was more of just a curious exercise that turned into me playing it for 3 hours and then like starting a whole new game of Baldur's Gate 3 and then going like, I guess it works on the Steam Deck. I guess I'm going to keep playing it.
I've been really, I don't know, my social media is just a constant stream of people still talking about Baldur's Gate 3. And
it'd be much worse.
Yeah, it's true. That's a really good point. I should be happy that's what my social media stream is. But, I've been tempted to go back and replay it again lately, too. And I think it's like, well, maybe I should stream Baldur's Gate 3. And then it's just like, oh, man, that rabbit hole could eat up the rest of my year if I'm not careful. I mean, and it actually functions on the Steam Deck. That's impressive.
It functions. It doesn't look great, but it works. And then I was just like, I'm gonna stream it from my PC to my deck, which works way better. Like, and it looks great. But
wow,
I'm like, wow, this like puny little device is able to play this game, and everybody like looks like. The worst part is their hair looks insane. Everyone's hair just looks crazy.
Isn't that funny how that's the first thing to go when a game's graphics settings start getting a little wonky? It's just like hair is immediately either like the shiniest, wettest thing in the world, or it looks like the hair from Final Fantasy VII. Just immediately, as soon as
shimmery, it's popping in and out. Like it looks like it does not look like. Just give them all a Picard. Just pull the hair. Can't do it.
There's probably a mod for that. I'm sure if you just went on Nexus Mods, you could get the Picard head mod for Baldur's Gate 3.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's not much more to say about Baldur's Gate 3. It's a good game. They did it. They did a good job. Congratulations.
Good job, Larian. Yeah.
It's very nice. Good for you. You did it. A lot of people are happy, and they're posting about it on Jess's Blue Sky.
That's right. That's all I see. People just updating me all day long on which characters from Baldur's Gate 3 they have crushes on.
Yeah. All right. Well, and just to check in on the other thing that we talked. Josh, have you had any memorable meals lately? Because we do a lot of talk about this.
Well, I just yesterday got back from a trip to Ocean City, New Jersey.
Oh yeah.
My daughter is about to go back to college. She wanted one last hurrah before we left. So the last 3 days or 4 days, I've been eating nothing but pizza and frozen custard and shaved ice.
I mean, there are worse ways to live.
Yeah.
There are, but thank heavens I brought Imodium with me on the trip.
Oh man,
Are you on the West Coast, or like was this?
I'm in Albany, New York.
You're in Albany, New York.
So
Okay.
it was about a 4.5 hour trip to Ocean City.
All right. I'm trying, like, I used to go up to Rochester all the time, and I still have family up in Rochester, so I need to go over there. And speaking of frozen custard, they have really good frozen custard. And they have Abbott's frozen custard, which inexplicably also has a location in New Orleans, which really confused me because it's only in the Rochester area, and then there's one in the French Quarter.
all I have is Culver's for frozen custard.
Culver's is great.
I have to drive like an hour for it, but I mean, there's that bite to custard that just is so much better than ice cream or soft serve. Oh man, now I'm thinking about custard.
Isn't Culver's sort of like the default frozen custard? When people think of frozen custard, they think of Culver's first. I think so.
Probably now. I mean, it's got, at least for, I know Midwest, it covers a good chunk of that region. I don't know how far beyond that they've expanded. When I grew up, just down the street from me was a custard stand called the Frosty Bossy that had like a soft serve cow mascot. The Frosty Bossy was very good.
I had a wonderful because it was just my birthday, so I went to a nice restaurant. But the real show, like the meal was incredible. The real show was I was sitting next to uh uh two parents and their older daughter, like so it's like their 25, 26-year-old daughter and her parents having dinner at this nice restaurant, and they tried to set her up with the waiter, and I think uh she wanted to, jump into traffic. Like, what a terrible like, it got to the point where the waiter said, and he used this word, he said, "Let's keep this discussion germane to the food on the menu." That's how you know it's a fancy restaurant. If he's saying germane,
Yeah.
at a restaurant, like, that this isn't like a hot dog stand,
Yeah, sir, this isn't a Wendy's. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that point.
And that the waiter is working his way through like college or grad school or something like that.
And he's
poor
just
guy,
like,
and poor everyone involved in this situation, except for you, who got a great show. Like,
got a
dinner and a show.
Yeah. Went to a baseball game, had a lovely meal, went home and passed out. That was my birthday. Lovely day.
There you go. Well, let's turn our focus a little bit here, and Josh, I'm curious. Before you came to Sierra, I know that you've already mentioned your background in comedy and magic. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. I mean, where did your journey with video games start before you ended up at Sierra?
Well, when I was a comic, after the first year or so, we spent most of our time on the road.
Mm-hmm.
And that meant a lot of downtime in hotels. So I used to drag my ColecoVision with me.
Oh, wow.
On all of our trips. And I played endlessly during the day because nights were always in the club. And that's really kind of where I started with games. Um, the one thing that happened before that was back in I think it was the late 70s or early 80s, before comedy even came into my life. A friend of the family's took me to the place where he worked, which I think was called Infoton. And he had a mainframe, and he had the old basic Star Trek
Hmm.
Ah.
Yeah.
running, and he had Adventure
Yep.
running.
Mhm.
And I played Adventure, and I thought this was the greatest invention mankind had ever come up with. Um, so once I finally got my own PC, which was about 1985 or six, I started playing Infocom games, and my life changed for the better. Um, uh, and so my quest became more and more games that I don't have to pay for. So that's how I got into beta testing and games journalism. I wrote a lot for the Electronic Gamer, which was CompuServe's electronic gaming magazine,
Mhm.
and for a magazine called Video Games and Computer Entertainment,
Hmm.
which was edited by a fellow named Andy Eddy, who's still around and still very active in the community. And then I started getting games for free, and life was wonderful.
I yeah, I mean, I have friends who have been touring comics, including like Jess, you and I, like Marty,
Mhm.
Sarah's husband, is a stand-up and has done the touring stuff. And I've heard from people touring that it is a grind. Uh it's like, oh, you get to go to all these exciting places, and it's like you get to be in a lot of exciting hotels, or a really hideous place that the club has for comics that I've heard a lot of disgusting stories about.
There, a lot of clubs have what are called comedy condos,
Yes.
which are apartments rented specifically for out-of-town comics to stay in while they're working at whatever club. And the comedy condos in Florida were frightening. I had never spent time in Florida before, so I was not used to the June bugs
Oh
uh,
yeah.
and armadillos dead in the middle of the
Mhm.
street, lizards all over the place. It was frightening. It really
And then
was.
just the whoopee cushions everywhere in the comedy condos. I bet made them
Yeah.
uncut. Yeah. Every time you sit down, it's got.
The constant fear of having a pie thrown in your face, somebody coming up to you and inquire, like you don't get a moment's rest when you try to sniff a beautiful flower. Horrible.
Oh,
you,
and
you get
the
dressed up for the
bottles of
show.
seltzer being sprayed in your face constantly.
You get dressed up for the show, but your tide just keeps rolling up and smack. Yeah, I mean, it's gotta be hard.
The club sends a car for you, and you look into it, and there's 20 guys, and they're like, all right, come on, get in.
It's a living.
It was always fun when the owners of the comedy club would give us a little tour. I remember again this was a chain of comedy clubs in Florida. I think they were called Funny Bone, and the guy took us around, showed us the green room and everything like that, and he said, "Okay, this is the office. This is the copy machine. Now, you do not do drugs when you're in this club, but if you're going to do coke, this surface on the copy machine is where you cut your line."
I mean, it makes sense. No, I mean, that checks out.
Yeah.
It's actually, just to jump all over the timeline a little bit, something that when Ben and I were discussing having this chance to talk with you, one of the things that I think is really challenging for adventures games and really games in general is finding that funny place, like how you actually go about making a funny game. What makes a funny game work? And I'm kind of curious, with your background in comedy and eventually bringing that to adventure game design, like how do you make a game funny? What does it take?
I think what it takes is a good deal of broad, interesting characters and interesting, unusual environments. And
Mm,
that gives you so many opportunities uh, to have them bounce off of each other in unexpected and ideally humorous ways. A lot of things to interact with, a lot of characters to interact with who are going to have very unique takes on the world. So it's a matter of setting yourself up for success with a variety of characters and environments. And then it's hard to go wrong, I think.
and it's like on that subject when Jess and I were talking about it, like I kind of think about uh with like a comedy adventure, like designing the puzzles have to like has to be like, I guess, where's your head at when it's like, okay, so it's uh like the logic of this world is a little askew, so the puzzles are going to be a little askew. Like, how do you think through pulling someone along that they like their brain also moves about 20 degrees? You know what I mean by that? Like, does that question make sense?
I think as long as the dialogue and narration uh, are clearly skewed in the way that you're talking about, people
Hmm.
will just naturally go along with that and start thinking along slightly skewed lines. I mean,
Hmm.
when you play Monkey Island, the world is so crazy that when it comes to a monkey wrench, it's not that big a leap. Um, you've come to expect
Yeah.
that sort of twisted outlook on life and on puzzles and puzzle solutions. So you just have to reflect for the audience the mindset that you want them to think in, if that makes any sense.
Oh, it
That
absolutely does.
Yeah. And it's like I was like, especially with a game like Callahan's like Cross Time like where there's so much of it is like this wordplay and these puns and stuff. And that like, that's really interest like, you can see that in that game. And I'm also wondering, how difficult was it to get that many puns into a game, or are you one of those guys?
I'm unfortunately one of those guys. Um, when I was a kid, my father was a writer, a screenwriter, and TV writer, and he was very successful. I've always sort of lived in his shadow. Um, but when we sat around the dinner table, one of us would make a pun on a subject, and it was assumed that everyone else at the table was going to come up with their own puns that were even worse on the same topic, and it became a contest. And this was a nightly occurrence with us. So we were always, as a family, making puns. Although my mom kind of she didn't so much.
Mhm.
She just listened. Um, but puns just sort of were a natural part of our family. And so when it came time, one of the things that attracted me to the Spider Robinson books in the first place was his grand use of puns throughout. So it was a natural when Legend said to me, pick two writers whose games you might want to turn into games. Um, I said either Dean Koontz or Spider Robinson. And I don't know if they ever even considered Dean Koontz, but Spider Robinson, they said, sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
And I mean, yeah, that's then my next question then is as somebody that played a bunch of Infocom games, was Nord and Bert really easy for you then?
it was a delight to play, but it was not always easy. I mean,
Yeah.
those were subtle puzzles. But I loved it. I mean, that was a game after my own heart, along with Leather Goddesses and Planetfall.
Yeah.
Steve Moretsky can do no wrong as far as I'm concerned.
I love Steve Moretsky, even though that's somewhat like his puzzles, like especially like you think about like Hitchhikers, like famously like has
Yeah.
very complicated, but they do make sense within that
Mm-hmm.
very skewed, like I think I've mentioned it on here before, the no T uh puzzle at the end,
Yes.
and like it you're just like, wow, that's very clever.
Right,
You got me.
right.
You know,
And
something we've
bureaucracy was another wonderful one.
Oh yeah, bureaucracy is one I find really fascinating.
Yeah.
The blood pressure mechanic is is really well done in that one. Is as your frustration with the bureaucracy increases, your character can potentially die for. I'm guessing, I don't know, embolism, heart attack, who knows? But yeah, something that's always struck me. We've talked about some of your games in the past here on Quest, and you know, Ben and I, when we talk about your writing style, something that's always struck me is I think what I really associate with a lot of your comedy and humor in writing is that you write so much. Like the more the more description, the more elaborate the joke, the more number of steps to get to the punchline. Like those are the bits of your games I tend to appreciate most. Is there anyone in particular that you can think of that along the way, games or novels or anywhere that inspired that approach of just sort of more is more?
I'll tell you, a great inspiration to me that I've kept in mind when working on many games was Mad Magazine.
Ah,
Um, and in particular, the first panel of a lot of their uh, movie and TV parodies, where you had a huge background, and everywhere you look, every little corner, there was a little joke or a little
mhm.
gag of some sort. And in fact, when I worked on Callahan's and some other games, I would send to the artists uh, pictures of some of the Mad Magazine parodies, the splash screens.
Mhm.
Um, and I would say, I want my game to play like a Mad Magazine splash screen.
It's so interesting whenever I talk to like somebody that like has like worked on like comedy projects, how like singular an influence Mad Magazine was, like that, like, and I mean including like my dad, who's not a comedy writer but has a very strange sense of humor, and like like collected all of them. We had the Totally Mad CD-ROM set that had all of them, and it came with Mad toilet paper. It was a huge box.
Yes.
Oh man.
And we had the rare. I don't know where. I don't know if my dad still has it. But we had the rare Mad board game where it was a parody of Monopoly. The
Right.
objective was to lose all your money.
One of the I should mention one of the slender connections between Mad Magazine and adventure games is the ex Sierra artist Rich Powell,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
who did wonderful stuff when he was at Sierra and beyond, and in his later career did a lot of stuff for Mad Magazine.
Cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, that means he might have met Al Jaffe. That's so cool.
I met Alfred
I
P.
don't
Newman.
know how often he was on site, but I
Yeah.
know he knows Al Jaffe very well and used to write about him and how much he admired him. Um, yeah.
You know, when you think about how much Mad Magazine inspired the world of comedy, do you think that alt comics are more inspired by Cracked? I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, they can't all be winners.
That's fighting words. There's actually a little bit of a disconnect there because I don't know if you remember, but Don Martin, who was such a part of Mad Magazine, went over to Cracked for a good amount of time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, for me as a kid, when I was flipping through my dad's Mad magazines, I was just always all about the Sergio stuff, all the
Oh yeah.
all the marginalia, and
Yes.
he didn't do the lighter side. What was his?
No, that
He
was
did,
David Berg.
yeah,
Hmm.
which I also loved.
Oh
Yes.
man, I loved as a kid in the '80s really seeing those hippies get theirs in the latter side. I was like, oh, these hippies seem like the worst. They must smell terrible.
I think it was The Simpsons who they were looking at Mad Magazine and someone Bart or Homer said something like, "Oh man, they don't care who they offend."
I The Simpsons is very mean to Mad in a very affectionate way, because obviously everyone, like
Yes.
any interview with any of them, they're all like, "Oh yeah, we all read it." My favorite Mad magazine joke on The Simpsons is when uh we see like an exterior of the Mad magazine offices and we overhear, "How about we call it Everyone Hates Raymond?" Well, it took us all night. What a nasty joke. What a I think about that one all the time. Just a very good, I like a good kind of mean joke of something that you're that affectionate of. That could only come from a place of love. So uh I'm gonna share a story, and I would uh love to hear like what your kind of reaction to this is, which is that, so I'm a big competitive pinball player. uh Pinball is manufactured right outside of Chicago. A lot of the old arcade designers, people going back to the 80s and even like the late 70s, most of them are still here doing stuff. um and so about, I would say maybe like 13, 14 years ago, I was at a launch party for a brand new pinball machine, and it was at an arcade bar here in Chicago. And that was when those were still kind of a novelty. I think they're everywhere now. And so I was having a conversation with a guy that designed this pinball machine, and he'd been working in the games industry for a long time. And he was being very generous with his time and talking about like designing pinball with me. And then he like tapped me on the shoulder and he said, "I don't mean to be rude, but right behind you is a Tron arcade cabinet, and people are playing it. And I worked on that Tron game when I was 24 years old, and I had no fucking clue what I was doing. So I have to take a photo of people playing this. And so like I kind of like, here we are, and we're talking about like, could you imagine when you were working on, Freddie Farkas or on Callahan's or any of that you'd be like, that people would ask you about it all these years later?
Never, never in a million years. I like to say that if we had known, if we had had any idea that 35 years later, people would still be talking about these exact games, um, we would have worked on them harder.
If you could George Lucas something, like I'm sure there's a lot of little things. It's like, you'll see someone, like you turn on Twitch and you see someone play something, you're like, ah. What's one thing that you would, if you could George Lucas, this is the special edition, this is the only version that they sell on Steam now. Is there one thing that you would special edition out?
Are we George Lucasing enough that we're speaking specifically of graphics or any aspect?
Any aspect. I'll leave it open to you. He changed Han isn't shooting first anymore. Anything's on the
Right.
table.
I would have done a strict editing pass on Callahan's. I thought I was going to have time for that. And one day I got a call from Legend. I was like on vacation with my parents on a cruise or something like that, and they said, "Oh, by the way, we've released the game." And I was like, "Wait a minute. There's a lot of jokes in here that don't land at all that I would love to take out." And I thought I was going to have the time and opportunity to do that. And it needs it, seriously. Just a few weeks ago, I read a review of Callahan's that I had never seen before in my life. I'll even be brave enough to tell you where I found it. It was on Digital Archive, and it was an article called "The Last Games of Legend." And he ripped Callahan's up one side and down the other.
Oh no.
So, I mean, it was by far the worst review I've ever read for anything I've worked on. The wordiness, the dad jokes, it just pointed up to me how badly the game needed an editing pass and didn't get one. I lost a few nights sleep reading that review. But
Jimmy, how could you do this?
Yeah. Ben's pulled it out. This is Digital Antiquarian, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yes, that's right.
I mean,
That's right.
Digital Antiquarian historically has some opinions on games that sometimes go in there under, like, he famously doesn't care for Doom, which it may not be your cup of tea, but saying it's not a great game seems like
did he say that it's not a great game, or I don't think he.
I think he's just like, it's not for me.
Not for me that.
Which I get that completely. Something, Josh, just sort of piggyback off of Ben asking about this idea of a fan community that's kept playing these games for decades. In terms of designers, that did a lot of their work in the 90s and everything, I feel like you've really been a constant presence in the fan communities, contributing your voice to King's Quest, fan games, and taking time to do interviews like this and dozens others you've done with fans through the years. Do you think part of that comes from being a fan yourself before you got into the biz, or what is it about sort of being part of those fan communities that appeals to you?
That's absolutely it. I mean, I was a games fan long before I got into the industry, and I've been one ever since. So when I read people talking about these games, I can't help but join in and contribute trivia about
Mhm.
the days at Sierra and so on. Um, it's just so much fun. I mean, talking about games, what a luxury. I mean, to have a life where we can actually make a topic of conversation the fun that we had 35 years ago playing such and such game. It's a marvelous thing, and I adore being part of it, and I adore seeing what the fans come up with, and anyone who's working on a fan game who wants some help or anything, I'm thrilled and honored to be asked. Um, it's it's a never-ending source of joy for me.
If I can share a personal story, going all the way back to 1995 when I'd first launched my website, my Space Quest website, the Virtual Broom Closet. Yeah, I think I've mentioned this on my stream before. I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast, but I remember this very vividly. I had gone home for Christmas break in 1995. I was in college. I'd gone home to stay with my family, and it was 1995. My family didn't have internet access at home, but I'd been on the internet for all of 3 or 4 months, and I was just deeply addicted to it. And now I'm having to go cold turkey back in my rural Appalachian hometown. And what I was doing to like scratch that itch was calling a friend of mine every day who had internet access still, asking them to log into my email account and read emails for me. This is 1995, folks. Sometimes you just had to call someone and have them read your emails aloud to you. And while I was, that's what we called dial-up internet at the time. Yeah, you call somebody and say, "What does my email say?" And this guy, like, dude, what a friend, first of all, is dutifully going through my inbox and reading what's there. And he gets, he's like, okay, this next one is from Josh Mandel. And I said, wait a second. Josh Mandel, he said, yeah. And he clicked into it. And you had sent me an email about an like a page I had up as part of my Space Quest website where I'd kind of told like a loosely fictionalized version of like the two guys from Andromeda story, sort of a history of the series in universe, sort of. And you'd written in to tell me that you enjoyed it and offering a couple of corrections about sort of what happened with Space Quest 6. No, I mean, it was a time when sort of the development of Space Quest 6 was a mystery to people who weren't in. I mean, now the story's been told tons of times about you starting on that and eventually Scott stepping in after you left Sierra and some of the bumps in the road that caused. But at the time, I had no clue. I knew what I read in Interaction, and I believed everything I read in Interaction.
That's still my main source of news.
That's right. I call it the paper of record. I just go back to those old issues of Interaction to see what's going on. But yeah, you just said like, you kind of gave me the first time like a scoop on. It's like, well, here's what kind of happened with Space Quest 6 if it seems a little weird at times. And it just blew my mind. The idea that, because I mean, I was a nerd. Shockingly, I was a huge Sierra nerd. I knew your work from the games. I knew your work from Interaction. I remember like one of my favorite all-time jokes, if I can just embarrass you for a moment, I think that I've ever read that you've written was in a piece in Interaction where I think you were being tasked with the job of writing a couple of pages trying to sell Sierra's 16 color parser based games as Sierra was finally closing them out. So you sort of had a last pitch to readers of this magazine, get these while you can at this discounted price. And of course, rather than just, sort of ad copy, you took the opportunity to have some fun with it. And at one point, you used the phrase and sort of the joke, and I'm paraphrasing here, but it was like, folks, we've pulled out all the stops. So if you find any stops lying around, those are ours. Which for me, as like a 12 or 13-year-old kid, I was like, that's the best joke I've ever read. That's fantastic.
How was that done at the dinner table?
That's a good question. But, again, to get that email, and I think it speaks to, even in those early days of the internet, you were out there being part of these fan communities. And it's been fantastic to, that you've given so much of yourself to talk about this work that you did years and years ago.
Well, it was such a pleasure to work there. Something I never expected for myself, and so many creative opportunities. Interaction and the games themselves and the videos. So much opportunity there, and creativity eking out of every corner of that building. And before then, back when I was on CompuServe, I was sysop of the Gamers Forum, if I can use a word that nobody knows anymore.
I think the listeners of this podcast probably...
Yeah, don't worry. Our demographics skew a little older.
True. Sysop of Gamers and Game Pub, which was the publisher's forum, and they made me quit that when I went to work for Sierra. But it's always been such a great community to be a part of, and I've never experienced, specifically in the adventure game community, the kind of toxic behavior that you see in some game genres and their communities. The adventure game community has always been very, very welcoming and very friendly and very delighting in everyone's memories and creating new memories. And I don't specifically remember writing that message to you, but it doesn't surprise me.
Mm-hmm.
I just, I want to be part of it as an ex-Sierra employee, but I also want to be part of it as a fan. And this is a way for me to do both at the same time.
What now, Jess, you finish this question for me, because you had this question when we were talking, prepping. What was it like? So you were the sysop on this gamer forum on CompuServe, and you were and then you come in, so you're transitioning from the fan realm into you're crossing over into working for the company. And were you, and just fill this in because I'm stealing your question. This was your question. But were you the part of a second generation of adventure game designers at
because
Sierra?
I think about a lot of the early Sierra designers, sort of my impression is a lot of them were kind of just random folks that fell into Ken and Roberta's orbit at some level. A lot of them that maybe had minimal background with games, maybe weren't necessarily gamers themselves, or limited sort of stuff like that. But then I think about the group of people that come around a little bit later. I'm thinking you, the Coles, a few others that came on during the 90s. Was that the impression, or is that a mischaracterization of what the culture was like at Sierra at the time?
By the time I got there, felt like the Coles had been there for a long time and
Mm-hmm.
were part of the original stable.
Mm.
You had Roberta, you had Al, you had Jim Walls, you had the Coles, and the two guys and Christy Marks.
Mm-hmm.
And um, I felt like I was part of the next generation, which was um, myself and Bruce Balfour,
Mm-hmm.
Jane Jensen,
Oh, yeah.
Gano Hain, and Lorelei Shannon. Um, I think we were kind of viewed as the apprentices in the
Mm-hmm.
renowned Sierra star system. Um, so we all had to prove ourselves by working with the established designers, um, and our arrangements were completely different because the original set of designers all worked uh, on a royalty basis, whereas the new generation we were salaried. So
Oh.
there was that dividing line between us, and eventually that changed. I think Jane moved to a royalty arrangement. I'm not sure about that. I've never really discussed it with her, but yeah, we were sort of the new generation, but we saw the Coles as being already very well established, and Christie as well. Um, and what was remarkable about Christie was that she had never even played a computer game before she designed Camelot, and it was such a marvelous game, and so was Robin Hood, and
I
it
love
just
Robin Hood. I love
yeah.
that game
Yeah,
so much.
we've talked about this a little bit. Even with Jim Walls's games, I think that outsider perspective has a way of creating some interesting games. Like there is something to Jim's Police Quest games that sets them apart the same way that a lot of how Conquests of Camelot is put together probably isn't how most people would go about designing an adventure game, but it's kind of what makes it delightful in a lot of ways. So no, that makes a lot of sense. That's fascinating. Yeah, now that I think about the Coles had been there a little bit longer than that crop of folks that you brought up there. So that's interesting. Yeah.
For such a large company, it remains very interesting to me that every game is very unique to the the people who made it. Like it does not have like there is like obviously they're using the same engine and like there's obvious like but like when you're playing like we were just talking about this, it's like when you play the Police Quest 1 remake, there's certain like you can see the fingerprints of the people working on it, which is a very interesting and unique thing. You just don't find that, especially from what was like the largest company or one of them, right? Was it the largest one of the
I
yeah.
think it was for a time, yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's nuts to me that like it didn't have like this standardization like that that you all like uh you can detect like who worked on it. That's really interesting to me.
And Sierra did such a good job reinforcing that through interaction and through its media presence in general. I think that kind of like, I guess Infocom had done this before. I guess Electronic Arts during its early years really sort of stressed this star system, design, maybe in the case of Sierra, not the designer's name above the title sort of stuff, but definitely, as a kid, I knew who was making these games, which says a lot since I was kind of completely in the dark about who was making any other game in the industry that I was playing. I had no clue who was making the Super Nintendo games I was playing, but Sierra had done a good job of telling me it's like, oh, this is going to be an Al Lowe game, and Al Lowe, this is what he's worked on before, and this is what you can expect. And your parents may not let you play this, but you'd love it if they did.
Was it like when you would have the opportunity to design something, would it be like kind of like a being tossed into the deep end? It's like this is yours, or how was that like that allowed like this sort of uniqueness to each person? Like how did that work out in practice, I guess?
Well, I mean, for me, it was not difficult because I had the background in comedy.
Hmm.
So I just used my comedy voice. Um, so I didn't feel out of my depth in that regard. I did feel out of my depth in terms of some of the things I was originally asked to do. For instance, um, I was originally the producer after Garuka on some of the Game Arts titles we came out with, like Zelyard and Thexter 2 Firehawk, and so on. And I was asked to produce these games, and I didn't I didn't know a thing about producing, not one iota. Um, Same thing when I got kicked upstairs to manage the product design group. I'd never managed a group of people before. I knew nothing about management, which I had in common with a lot of the other people there who were managers. Um, no training whatsoever. So um, uh, there were definite things that made me feel thrown into the deep end,
Hmm.
but writing on the games was never one of those. I was very comfortable doing that because even as a fan, beta testing Sierra games or Infocom games as I did, or Surtech games, um, I would watch scenes from the games and I would think, well, if I was designing this game, this is the way the scene would go, and so on. So I was ready for that.
Did you vent some of those thoughts when you made the game boxes for Space Quest 4?
um, yeah, probably.
uh all right. Well, Jess, do you have any further questions, or do we want to like
No,
yeah.
I mean, I think this is a good time,
Yeah.
probably to wrap it up because I think that I think we've got some fascinating stuff to chew on here. And Josh, thank you so much for coming on. And once again, everyone, please check out the show notes. Follow that link to Roberta Vaughn's GoFundMe. Again. Anything you can do to help out with her family dealing with this great loss will be greatly appreciated. And we appreciate Josh coming on here and letting us throw silly questions at him for an hour so, as a way to get some more eyes on that GoFundMe. So thank you so much, Josh, for being here.
Yeah,
It is
thank you.
it is an absolute pleasure to talk to you guys because you know the subject matter. You do your homework. You ask interesting questions, and it is a pure pleasure to be able to talk to you about these things.
Thank you so much. What a kind compliment. It's very much
Absolutely.
appreciated. All right. Well, thank you so much to the listeners for listening to Quest Quest. You can send us an email at questquestpodcast@gmail.com. You could please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever else. Leave us a comment on Spotify, and join us next week when we actually do the After Therapy Talk Show, and we get into it. But that's next week. See you then.